Welcome to Algebra Series, Episode 1. Today we're going to focus on some simple one-step algebraic expressions. First question here, x plus 1 equals 6. So we need to figure out what x is equal to. Most students don't have a problem with it, but they sometimes don't do it the way you're supposed to do it. They'll just look at it, they'll figure it out in their head, and they won't actually understand how to do this question properly. They'll just look at it and say, okay, well, 5 plus 1 is 6, so x is equal to 5. And they'll just write down x equals 5, and that's correct. Now, the problem with doing it this way is eventually things become much more difficult. And if you don't understand how to do the operations correctly, then you're gonna have problems later on once the questions become too challenging to do it in your head. So the proper way to do this question is actually to get rid of this plus 1. So this is the idea of undoing what is happening to x. So if we're adding 1 to x, to undo that, we need to subtract 1. Now, whatever you do to the left-hand side, you need to do it to the right-hand side. You can think of it as a balance scale. If I was to add weight to one side, but not the other, the scale will no longer be in balance and it'll tilt one way or another. Same thing as if I took some weights off. It would no longer be in balance. Same idea with equations. When you're dealing with equations, whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So once you subtracted 1 from both sides, we get x plus 1 minus 1 equals 6 minus 1, and we get x equals 5 again, since 1 minus 1 is 0, and since 6 minus 1 is 5. Simple enough. Okay, here's another one. X minus 13 equals 4. In this case, we want to get rid of the minus 13. So we're going to add 13 to both sides. That's going to give us x minus 13 plus 13 equals 4 plus 13. 13 minus 13 is 0, so we get x on the left, and 4 plus 13 is 17. So that means x is equal to 17. So once you've done a couple of these, you'll start to recognize patterns. The first thing is you're always doing the opposite operation. So what we've learned so far is that adding and subtracting are considered opposite operations. If you're subtracting something from x, to get rid of that, you can add something to x, and vice versa. Now, what if we're instead multiplying x by something? Again, this is one that you could probably do in your head, but the proper way to do it is to do the opposite operation. So remember, if you have a 6 beside a variable, the default operation is multiplication. So this is considered 6 multiplied by x. The reason why we don't put a multiplication symbol here is because if we wrote down 6 times x like this, with sloppy writing, this can get very confusing. And you won't be able to tell if that's a second x or a multiplication symbol. So as we get into high school and higher grades, we completely drop the multiplication symbol and we rarely ever use it again. Okay, so what do we do here? We're actually going to divide both sides by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. And 18 divided by 6 is 3. So we get x is equal to 3. Okay, let's try another one. This time we have x over 4. Now, one thing you need to remember is that the fraction symbol is the same thing as division. So this is the same thing as writing down x divided by 4. Now, last time when we had multiplication, we did division. So this time when we have division, we should do multiplication. So what we do is we're actually going to multiply both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 3 times 4 is 12. So we get a final answer of x equals 12. So now we know that adding and subtracting are considered opposite operations, and multiplication and division are also considered opposite operations. That's it for this video. Go ahead and do the homework in blue. If you found this video useful, please subscribe.